And so I'm going to pass out to you a chart that we're going to be working with the whole time. Let's see, I'm not sure if I've divided it. This chart is an adaptation of a wonderful life chart that was created by a husband and wife named George and Gisela O'Neill. And so among the biography works that are available, there's this one called The Human Life, which is produced by Mercury Press in Spring Valley, New York. And this chart is just a phenomenally helpful tool for beginning to look at biography work. The book itself, it's not the place to start if you suddenly develop a passionate interest in this topic, because the book is a collection of articles that the authors wrote and then were organized together after they had died, kind of into a collection. But there's not sort of a red thread that runs through the whole thing. It doesn't develop from thought to thought. Each kind of stands alone. And one needs a little bit more of an orientation. Okay. Now, I didn't keep one for myself. That was silly. No, they're right over here. Thank you. Now, what I'd like you to do with this chart available to you, I would like you to take 3 to 5 of the things that you wrote down, and as best you can, insert them here on this chart at the closest you can get to the age that you remember you were when that event or feeling or experience happened. So you see, so birth would be 0, then 7. Along the chart you'll see every 7 years there's a new age that goes from birth to age 63. And this is your own very, very personal budding biographical picture. All right, let's pause with that for a moment, because I'm going to entrust you tonight to fill this out some more, and don't try to do anything with it. It's just enter these various events on your chart. And we'll just kind of let it percolate there and see what comes. Now, we notice that here that all of these moments are cycles of 7 years, or they're segments of 7 years. Now, in Waldorf education, for each of us who's a teacher and has had the benefit of some teacher training and study, we know, boy, have we heard about these 7-year cycles. A lot, I hope. I hope. We've heard about them a lot because they are utterly important for us to understand as teachers as to the developmental phases and themes that the children are participating in each segment of the education. And many of you were here on Friday and Saturday, and so we spent a long time developing the picture of the task of the first 7 years for the human being, which is to come into the development and possession of a healthy physical body and the development of a strong and reliable sensory system. Eyes, ears, taste, smell, touch, the obvious ones, then plus a sense of balance and experience of our body and its organization and stability, which are the physical foundations for having a sense of emotional stability and sense of security in the world. And so in early childhood, we are just working all the time, and I didn't even tell you that, so for those of you who were not here, my background is early childhood, although I've taught high school and middle school as well along the way. And my specialty really is working with children through movement and imagination to help them develop this strong, healthy body and sensory avenues that reliably help the child to enter into the world and receive impulses back from the world that are true. We have to do that without technology because those things are not true. They're a manipulation. So we spend a lot of time talking about that. And then how do we know that 7? Why do we say birth to 7? Because at somewhere in the 7th year usually, and the 7th year would be the year between 6 and turning 7, we see a remarkable change in the physical body of the child. We see they start to grow, they start to lengthen, the limbs get longer in relationship and proportion to the trunk and circumference of the head. They start to lose teeth, which actually they're doing sooner and sooner now, but that's not because they're maturing faster. It has more to do with environmental influences that are just accelerating things, with a heavy stimulation of the nerve sense system. But the 6-year-old molars are much more reliable. They come in that year, and they develop an arch in the foot. If you can see them in the summertime, that you notice that they actually have a rib cage, because you can see them when they're in the swimming pool or the pond. All of these various things, and they start to slenderize, they lose their little kind of pudgy baby fat. And we just say, well, they don't look like a kindergarten child anymore. They look like a child who's ready, a grade school child. And that happens every culture on the planet. A human being in that 7th year, 6 to 7, will show us that something it seems as though has been finished. And now the child is ready to move on to something else. And so then we start to see, it's starting at about age 12 now. That's when I'm really noticing it in our school. Something new is coming on here. It really is. And that in my granddaughter's class, now 6th grade, many of them are turning 12, that the girls are proportionally getting shorter and the boys finally are getting taller. And that some of the 6th grade boys now are taller than I am, which is not a big deal because I'm shrinking and they're growing. But you see, their whole physical being is changed. If you're in the classroom of that age, 6, 7, 8 on, other things change as well. And different fragrances of humanity in the room. We see hormonal changes, physical development toward maturation in adolescence. And we also see that the way they begin to think changes. It's not just physical changes, although that's the one that's the most obvious marker. But we do see that they begin to think differently. That happens at 12, and it keeps going on to 14, where it kind of really starts to solidify itself. And for the first time, at age 12, can the child, the human being, really understand cause and effect. We think that, and we act as though children, now, if you do not brush your teeth, you will get cavities, you 6-year-old. So, that's supposed to be a motivation to brush teeth. It's time to brush our teeth. Come on, here we go. We're all doing it. Children cannot really understand cause and effect. And that's when, in the curriculum, then the observational sciences of chemistry and physics and optics are introduced, because suddenly they can observe and then start to say, "Why? How does that happen? How does that happen?" And then, collectively in the class, they investigate that and they come up with an explanation. Because they can now see that's not magic. Something is behind that phenomenon, and we can think our way into that. And then, if you have an adolescent child, or if you have had an adolescent child, the jaw comes out a bit, and you say something that you've said for 14, 15 years, and everybody has just complied with it, if you're fairly lucky. And then, why? Prove it. Prove yourself to me. Prove to me that that's true. And we see a real difference in consciousness and approach to the world, in saying, okay, I've heard the fairy tales. Now I want the real stuff. Now, if we've done our job well, all of the fairy tales have had the real stuff in them, which they will come around to see when they're a bit older. One of the most fun times I've had in our school is when there's been an extra week of a block in the 12th grade. And the early childhood teachers are invited to come one by one and tell our favorite fairy tale. And then the 12th graders say, well, what was that about? And so for the first time, then we can suggest, well, this image, that might be this. And then every one of them will ultimately go, so that was it. Because it resonates with them now. They're old enough and they can reflect back upon these things, and they've been guided through truthful experiences in their education, that they can recognize truth in image form and see that it's the same thing, but it has been lifted in an artistic way to make it more accessible. And only later then, now that we have the intellect, can we merge all of those things together. How exciting. How utterly exciting. Now, the age of 21, there's another one. Here we go. Another. Why 21? So I was really fascinated by this. When I was in college, I had a study abroad year in England. And the 21st birthday party is a big deal. Huge, huge big deal. I turned 21 while I was there, and so I kind of got a party along with two other friends for whom it was a huge deal. Huge. Fancy, very fancy dresses and cards and a huge party and all these things. And even at that time, when I was just turning 21 myself and kind of saying, why 21? Why 21? Because I think by that time, even the draftable age in the U.S., the draftable age has always been 18. But then finally we came to the point of saying, well, if we tell them to go off and offer yourself to be killed in a war, you probably should be able to vote for the people who decide whether you're going to go off and have the opportunity to be killed in a war. But we know that 18 is not the same. It's just not the same. There's a quality that comes with 21, and it's not just the U.S. or England. There's something about that age that has been observed, that it's different and it's special, and there's something that kind of goes in lots of cultures. In the same way that there are at age 14, there are religious ceremonies of being welcomed into adulthood, as well as in other societies, there are initiation rites that they come about at this time. Well, isn't that interesting? Nobody in New Guinea did a survey of at what age do other cultures have transition passages, rites of passage for their young people. It's just that there's a commonality of a recognition that something has happened that's completed and ready to take a new step at these various ages. Now,
you.